that for YouTube. I'm impressed myself. Look at this. I'm on YouTube now. I'm on like Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Impressive stuff, eh? You know. So yeah, because we're a bit early, because I want to make sure everything's worked. We're waiting for people to come in, you know, and yeah, do all that. Hey Tracy. Tracy at the Academy of Cheese, absolute hero of the artisan cheese industry. Yeah, so we'll just chill out for a bit, you know, and you know, just wait for the big time clock to tick down. Hi Claire. Hope you're having a good day, enjoying all these amazing British cheese events. I had to log off just before the barge, and I got to see the stringy mash become a thing. I had that the first time, I remember, in Paris years ago, and I absolutely love this stuff. Jesus, hello. Yeah, as I said, I'm just waiting, just to the clock strikes, bang on 5 to get started. I know a lot of you have got your cheese out, ready to rock and roll. I know some of you have nipped down the pub actually to enjoy this weather, but as I keep on saying, I'm going to pull this straight off and upload it to the internet so you guys can watch later and stuff like that. I understand we've been in lockdown, so it's a really nice, you know, chance to get outside and everything. Oh, look, it's Pina, 1-2 Culinary Stew. Awesome Cambridge blogger. Obviously, I'm in Cambridge, so it's lovely, you know. Hey, Howard. God, so many nice, cheesy people. Yeah, which one, Claire? Which one? Got ya. So we're bang on the money. We're at 5. So let's get stuck in. So I'm Perry from Rennet Rind, and I'm talking to you guys today about the importance of time to artisan cheese. Now I've been a bit crude here and just said time, but these rooms are phenomenal. You know, we use selective pressures such as temperature, humidity, time, turning, brushing, washing, to get profiles where they need to be, or where we'd like them to be. It's an interesting thing that we put together. And if you bought the box, you don't need the box. I put 3 profiles of Baron Bigod, the phenomenal cheese made in Suffolk for Johnny and Dulcie Crickmore and the Fen Farm team, and they're just phenomenal cheese makers. You can't mature cheese without great cheese, and they use unpasteurized milk, traditional rennet, and they use just really good techniques which allow me to do my job. You can't do you know, sort of mature bad cheese, and this is why we have these stunning profiles. And we brought them along for you so you can see them every step of the way, and why there's no right or wrong, you know, in terms of where they are in their stage. In your box, you also would have got some butter from Fen Farm, some natural yogurt, and that natural yogurt is in there to show you the flavour of Montbéliard cow. You know, it's really distinct, but when you taste it, you taste it. You know what it's about. So we've got this on the side, this one here. And yeah, just to dip into when we've got there. And then four cartons of an odd thing is just sort of my little collection of treasures from the farm. So I've got some cow hair, some soil, some feed, and essentially that gives me an idea and an anchor where, you know, what the terroir is of that place. You know, it's been in lockdown, I haven't been able to see a lot of people, and yeah, this has been a great opportunity to draw on these senses and make sure they're still prominent in the cheese, because that's really important to the farm. So I want to make sure they're there. We may draw down on them, we may not, depending on how we go, but let's get stuck into our first cheese. So move to profile 1 if you have it, profile 1, which is this one right here. So we're going to just run through the steps, and there'll be jumping off points of what that cheese may be doing and what it tells me. So the first thing I want to look at, which is my day-to-day, is visually. We want to look at that rind and see what it's doing. So we've got some huge amounts of bloom that are here. If you can see that in a gradient, they kind of up from white going to a brown finish, you know, which is great, you know, that kind of ascension that's happening, and that's what I want to see. So that bloomy rind is Penicillium camemberti. That's predominant in brie-like cheeses and camemberts, camemberti. And that, to me, always has a mushroom kind of flavour, an aroma. And we're going to kind of let that happen, let that sink in. This is straight from the farm. This is just how we get this profile, which is really important, you know, because I know the standard and where it can go. Every cheese that comes in, I give it a pressure test, and then we build a maturation plan for it in terms of using these magnificent rooms to create really great flavours. So the first thing that we want to do is chop in a bit there, you know, and so we've inspected the rind. We can know it's more bloomy, which indicates to me that it's a younger style of this cheese. In terms of the interior, we've got this breakdown that's happening on the outside, and on the inside, a thick chalk line. So you might be able to see that there, the thick chalk line. And that's what's telling me is that the cheese hasn't fully broke down in the middle. You know, it hasn't broke down, and it would tell me that maybe there's a degree of acidity that's happening, which is really important. So if we give it a sniff, right? So we've done the visual check. You know what I do day to day. Let's give it a smell. So you get that mushroom that I was talking about, but then you get the acidity, the freshness, the milk, and the dairy. That's predominant in profile 1. You know, we're going to be talking about this balance that happens with age, particularly in the Baron Bigod, of acidity and savouriness, and how it bounces up and down, you know, how that balance works throughout the cheeses, which is amazing. So, so yeah, in terms of smell, fresh, milky, little bit of kind of savoury, slight savoury edge, which is great for such a younger style of this cheese. And then I don't want to hang around, I want you guys to get stuck in, so let's give it a taste. Delicious. You know, you've got that savoury edge just on the outside, predominant mushroom flavour, good level of salting, but in the middle, that chalkiness is really coming through. That acidity, that freshness, that Montbéliard cow is really hitting there, with a slight bitter note at the end, but nothing to worry about. And where we fit on this scale of acidity versus savoury, the acidity kind of level is going up, so you're getting more of a lactic kind of vibe that's going on, more fresh. And I think what I wanted to talk about with the importance of time is that I know a lot of you guys, you know, you're following the British Cheese Weekender, you know, you guys are probably all curd nerds, and you're taking a look at Free and going, that's my bag. But this cheese has a place in the market as well. You know, it's so important. You know, it's light, it's a real mellow, easy flavour. So when I'm sorting a cheese board for people, restaurants, I want to start somewhere mellow, somewhere nice and easy, somewhere to kind of move forward with. And this is really a good starting point for us. And also, you know, the amateur cheese artisan enthusiasts, you know, they're not going to be too scared about this cheese, you know. As I said, the bloomy rind is a traditional brie, you know, you'd see that kind of mould in a supermarket and it won't scare them too much. And it's a good gateway to getting stuck into the cheeses that, you know, that move forward. So really great profile for it, nothing wrong with it at all. It just has a different market, and that's what we like to do. Provide different avenues, get to know our customers, and get to understand what their profiles and what their customer base is like. So that's really important. Next, we move up to our 6-week profile. So this has been in the maturing rooms. It came in, and then we start to instigate a little bit of something interesting. We start to instigate turning within the cheese. So as you turn the cheeses, there's microscopic moisture that resides inside the cheese. And as you're turning it, there's these canals, you know, kind of, you can't really see them, but canals. And the moisture sinks to the bottom. Gravity does its work, it sinks all the way to the bottom, and then you turn it, and it does the same. That allows, like, the best analogy I can do is a circulatory system. You know, it's pumping the moisture through the cheese. We're the heart moving it back and forth. And it makes the chemical reactions that are in the cheese, the breakdown of amino acids, happen more evenly throughout the cheese, which is massively important. Another big importance for this as well is that if you leave it where it is for a period of time, all that moisture is going to sink to the bottom, and we're going to get a big old beer belly on the cheese. So, personal experience, I can say, it's no good to have a beer belly. So we don't like to see it in our cheese as well. Also, when the cheese is flat on these beautiful wooden shelves that we have here, the bacteria and the flora is it wants to live, it wants to breathe, and it wants to expel waste, CO2, it wants to expel that. And as it's expelling that, it's wastage and it doesn't taste particularly great. You know, it increases the amino acid. So if you constantly have a surface that's touching it, you're pushing all that wastage, in want of a better term, back through the cheese, which is like really, really important, and that's kind of what happens through the cheese. And you don't want that. So we turn this cheese twice a week to ensure that the growth is even around the cheese. As you can see, the bloomy rind is still there, but you might be able to see it now. I'll try and zoom in for you, actually. Let's see if that's good. No, we're not going to zoom in. Oh, we are. You can see the bloomy rind is beginning to die out. So we're beginning to get a vibe here now that the bloomy's running out, but also this cool little wrinkly rind is developing. And that wrinkly rind, you know, has a really cool effect on, which is a microflora like geotrichum. That causes this brain-like kind of wriggly worms that are on top, increases the breakdown in the cheese, sends out little tendrils down, and they break down the complex compounds which create amino acids, which makes milk taste like meat, taste like nuts, like the complicated stuff, which is a phenomenal thing to see happen and to see happening progressively through these three profiles. Patrick's here. What impact does wood have, and why not stainless steel? Now, it's more about the environment, actually. So these are Scandinavian redwoods, which have been kiln dried to about 12.5%. So humidity is really important to keep it consistent. It can soak up the moisture in the air and then saturate it. So it allows this temperature and humidity in this room to be more consistent. So not quite like about, you know, what's individual in terms of this cheese. In other cheeses, what it can do is promote a good, healthy biofilm. The connection between the wood and the cheese creates this more bacteria, which increases flavour and breakdown. So there's a couple of answers there, Patrick. I hope I covered them for you, you know. So yeah, visually we've inspected this cheese, we've taken a look at it, we know the breakdown is happening progressively into this extra couple of weeks profile. And what does that do to the cheese in terms of flavour and aroma? So let's give it a smell. Yeah, so we're still getting that fresh element there, that milkiness that's in there. But mushroomy, savoury has began to take over. You know, that balance that we're talking about, first profile one, acidity up here, you know, pulling it back now, the savoury's moving in. The mushroom, this is the interesting, the mushroom flavour is now converted into cabbagey. We've got a cabbagey vibe that's going on in the cheese, and that's really interesting. That's a really nice note to have in these cheeses, you know. So I won't hold you any longer. Let's have a taste. Good texture. Claggy, gets stuck around the gums, which is really nice. Saltiness coming through. Savoury pushing up there. We've got this saltiness now, which was pretty refined, but now it's like a Parma ham. It's like a Parma ham saltiness, which is beautiful. And then coming in the background, that freshness which is still there, which we can still see in the chalk line that's in the cheese. So turning the cheese is really important to make sure that the growth within the cheese is mature and it's all working right, you know, and it's working perfect. And yeah, I agree, Patrick. You know, the cheese science is the best science. I feel like a mad scientist here whenever I come in here trying new things. And this was a huge gamble. I need to say, actually, these 3 profiles I haven't tried before. You know, I've tried in previous tests, but this I wanted a completely blind tasting so I could give you my honest opinion of where they are and how they feel, you know. So the final cheese that we have, profile number 3, you guys were absolutely raving about this one when I posted the first image, and everyone wanted to get their hands on it, and lucky some of you have. And yeah, so what we've seen now is that we have like a pure breakdown that's gone from rind all the way through. In terms of balance on the top, you can see the geotrichum, that wriggly rind that I was talking about, is beginning to take over. Bloominess, particularly around the edges, that's the wrapping that normally kills the bacteria on there. And that has begun to dissipate, and we're getting more of a browning that's on there, and you know, the geotrichum is fully taking hold, letting those tendrils down in cheese, breaking it all the way through. You know, and the important thing about cheese, you know, as I said, you know, I've applied time to these, but I've applied time for me to get involved with the cheese, as in turning. And, you know, unfortunately, I'd love to say you can do this in your fridge at home, but these rooms are very controlled. So essentially, you've got a very even temperature, you've got a very even humidity. Cheese doesn't like, you know, if you imagine doing this in your fridge at home, and you're opening your fridge door all the time, humidity's going down, up, and that inconsistency breeds ammonia. And ammonia is something that can be nice, just on like the edge of the cheese, you know, it can be nice, it can aid breakdown, but the majority of the time, the cheese will be pretty horrendous and it's very dangerous to kind of work with, you know. So now we've tasted, visually inspected the cheese, you know, feel free to keep your questions going. So let's smell it. Right, so acidity, milk is completely gone now. You know, there's still a slight little chalky middle there, which is great, but the acidity is gone. We've just got pure cabbagey, brothy notes that are there, which is what is required from this cheese. This is what I want to be delivering. This will be like moving towards the end of my board. You know, what is the age of the 3 varieties? So we have, as from the farm, so 5-6 weeks, depending on how you know, their schedule and how their cheese is working. A further 2 weeks on this one, and finally an additional 2.5 weeks on the last one. So the time, that's the age of each cheese that's happened. So yeah, so it's so interesting. We just lost all acidity in this cheese. You know, there's a slight bit of spiciness there, so ever so slight, which is like the ammonia that's coming through, which is eventually going to happen, but we need to pull it out of our maturing rooms to make sure that it's bang on for people, you know? So yeah, so savoury, that saltiness is there, that Parma ham that we were saying, really beautiful. I mean, look at the breakdown that's there. It's through the cheese and it's perfect. Flavour. Meow. That's really good stuff. It's intense. Wow. It's so good. This is like my stuff. Like, cabbagey is at the forefront now. Mushrooms are gone. Cabbagey is running all the way through the cheese, which is so interesting. That savouriness, you know, the cheese now has been fully replaced with brothiness. There is no acidity whatsoever coming through the cheese, which is just amazing. The breakdown, the clagginess, and the texture is so moreish. It's got a beautiful way with it, which is amazing. And what's happening as well is that you're getting a refined farmyard flavour as well. You know, that's not particularly great, and this is where you can pull on your pots that I supplied you actually. You got some cow hair. If you pop one of these open, and I mean, step back, I don't think this is going to be particularly pleasant. What we have to remember, these are concentrated farm smells. Concentrated. As they pass through the milk, you know, they get lost and they become subtle features. So if you open your cow hair, give it a sniff, and God, it's it's phenomenal. Like, I love doing that. I love doing it because that is truly like that. You can pick up the elements, that aroma, that cowness that's residing in the cheese, and the flavour in the strength of the cow hair, which is just phenomenal, really. It works so well, so well. And they're your 3 profiles of Baron Bigod that I've been maturing. So anyone has any questions about maturing? Yeah, so I can see what's my favourite one. So I normally lean towards profile 2. You know, it's easy to cut, good for delis to handle, good for chefs to handle. It's got the elements of savouriness and the lacticness that's there as well. So it gives the best of both worlds. But that profile 3 is pretty special, and a once kind of profile kind of thing going on. So I'm going to do what probably was most predictable and say profile 3 is the one for me. Just purely because that breakdown is so perfect, and we're straddling the saddle. You know, another 7 days, something like that, or 7 days, we'll be looking at a concentrated ammonia, which is what we don't want to do. One for our customers, one for Baron Bigod. We don't want that happening for them. And yeah, so it's just perfect at the moment. You guys are you know, loving, you know, sort of where it's at the moment. And yeah, chalky heart. That's a typical sign of Baron Bigod. You know, one thing I really wanted to talk about as well is the idea of why we should mature cheese. You know, I get asked this question all the time. You know, why would we want to mature cheese? Cheese makers are doing it perfectly anyway. And I think the answer to that question, I wrote a blog recently, is quite simply, you know, when I was asked this in virtuals, is how do you want your steak cooked? Rare, medium rare, burnt to a crisp? Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, really, you know, and I think we, as British cheesemongers, should start asking that question of our customers. You know, this one profile cheese, Baron Bigod, is sensational, one of our most loved cheeses in the UK. But wouldn't it be great if, you know, the amateur cheese, you know, person could come in and actually try, you know, this chalky profile, which is a bit easier on the palate and a little bit more acceptable, and then you massive curd nerds could get involved with, you know, profile 3 because you're not afraid of a bit of mould. So the idea of, you know, how do you like your steak cooked? How do you like your cheese? Which is a relatively new approach, which we really want to be, you know, pushing now, which would be amazing. What could you drink with cheese-free? Yeah, so cheese-free, that savouriness there, that saltiness on the chart. What I do when I pair, I try and find out what the cheese is missing. And very apparently, we kind of worked out that acidity is massively missing in cheese number 3. I would love, and I'm going to celebrate the British Cheese Weekender, I'm going to take a bottle home of Saffron Grange Rosé, the Cuvée. That acidity, that sharpness, that fruitiness, traditional pairing, that cutting straight through the fat, and should be a great pairing with it. So you can either bash heads with a profile, find something more savoury. You could go for a red. I don't like doing that. The pairing is really difficult to do. The acidity is really you know, is what we require, and that will cut through the cheese and be really nice. So what is the humidity level in the maturing room? So temperature-wise, we keep it from 11 to 13 degrees. You know, it waves in between there, particularly in these unpredictable climates that we're in the UK. In terms of humidity, like so far, it's been over the last 2 weeks between 90 and 93%. So that will allow cheese, you know, to not leak moisture. So if you imagine how humidity works, is the drier the room, the more we're going to pull moisture out of that cheese. We do it too fast, we damage the cheese, and we get an overly chalky cheese. We do it nice and slow, it helps the cheese relax and create great profiles and breakdown that's happening within the cheese. So humidity level between 90 and 93%, that allows the moisture to be locked in the cheese. It can, at that level, you can get some unwanted molds that creep in, like mucor. But we've got the skills to work out how to combat that and how to move those cheeses off, those molds off, those unwanted molds that are there. So it's a really good, interesting way to look at free profiles and visibly be able to see their progression. And it was quite a challenge for me to get these free profiles running. And when Tracy gave me the call, they've done. I was like, let's go for it and give it a go. So I'm really happy that I can demonstrate the application of time within these free cheeses, which is great. Patrick and Tracy, the people that set up the Academy of Cheese, if you do have time, you should give them a round of applause, because the cheese industry last year was on its knees and they came up with this awesome event. I'm very fortunate to be asked to join after the second year, and those two are remarkable people, and we should all be we're forever in their debt, cheese makers and cheesemongers. So well done, Patrick and Tracy. Are there any plans to do multiple profiles on any other cheeses? So cheese is always variable. I think that's the really important thing to understand, and that's what makes cheesemongers, like Paxton's, like Neal's Yard, like Slayton Albury, like Bridge 67, so important to buying cheeses, because it varies all the time. The up and downs, it's different. On a bottle of wine, you get a vintage 2017, it will say cherries, leather, etc. In terms of cheese, it changes week to week. The biggest change that I see is when cows go out to pasture, or ruminant animals go out to pasture. That's the bit where I have to be careful, and it can throw up some few unusual things. So as the cheese comes in, we dedicate a maturing schedule to it and work out what might work best for that cheese to give a good profile. One of the best profiles that have come out of the last lockdown year was a 24-month-old Spark&Hoe Red Leicester. So it's this bad boy back here, and I've kind of held on to it because it's just an awesome profile. When you age a cheese for that long, it really becomes something very, very powerful. But this Spark&Hoe Red Leicester became a beautiful example of what maturing can do, controlled and over time. And this cheese has a huge amount of mite involved in it, so it gets brushed regularly, which is another feature of our maturing, what's in our arsenal. So I have a specific mite brush, and it allows me to wipe down the cheese, keep that mite off it, don't allow it to destroy the cheese too much. And it was good that I did that, because a lot of people might think that it's a green screen, and which is good, So no plans so far. Winslade, similar style to Baron Bigod, but wrapped in the spruce bark. We've got a really nice profile. I think we've got that now down, actually, and that's going to be our profile moving forward. Just working with a few other styles and working out what we can do with them, how we can help them get to the best they can be, so our customers can really enjoy them, which is great, I can't think of anything else to talk about. We've got 5 minutes left. Any more questions about maturing cheese, British cheese industry, what we're doing here? Doesn't appear so. You guys have gone quite quiet. But what I wanted to do was try some of the skyr yogurt from Fen Farm Dairy. So if you give it a taste, these at home, it's pure Montbéliard cow. Really great cow for making cheese with. And it's just got that slight farmyardness to it, which is just amazing, you know, and it creates such beautiful flavours and complex, you know. Johnny and Dulcie Crickmore, the Fen Farm team, are phenomenal cheesemakers, and rightly so, you know, because their cheese and any products that come out of there are like truly phenomenal, which is great, you know. And I appreciate you guys all joining me for this this chat. I really appreciate it. Can you talk a little bit about your affineur training? Yeah, so I went over to France with a number of cheesemakers and learned, you know, how to mature cheese, the art of it. And specifically, I trained with Hervé and Laurent Mons in the Auvergne region, where we made some Saint-Nectaire, some Comté, and they kind of learnt me the basics of maturing and what it is to be an affineur to refine cheeses. And it's just so important, they're so passionate about that side of cheese. And I think we're getting there. More and more people are understanding this style of selling cheese. And I think it's a great way for us to move forward, you know. What accompaniments do you have with Baron Bigod? There's only one accompaniment which I love at the moment. Rosebud preserves, cherry and amaretto jam is my favourite. I love that stuff. It's so good. It is truly phenomenal. And even if it doesn't go, I'd slammer it on there anyway. Great stuff, Perry from Edward. How do the size of Baron Bigod affect your affinage? Greatly. Yeah, greatly. The increase of volume of curd, you know, creates more challenges. So essentially, the larger the cheese, the longer you need to mature it for. And the longer that you mature cheese, the more susceptible it is to problems. So the 1 kilo we've got now down, the 3 kilo can come a little bit odd. It can come from different directions and cause them. The small ones are nice and easy. They get turned a couple of times and it works. But the 3 kilos tend to be challenging. But the 1 kilos we kind of got nailed, as you can see from these distinctive profiles, just a couple of weeks apart. Okay. Yeah, Howard, Winslade is great. It was really popular when I nailed that maturing profile. Hats off to Stacey Hedges, makes phenomenal cheese. Affineuring would be nothing without phenomenal cheese makers, which we have, which is phenomenal. So yeah, so I think that's me up. I think that's my 30 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be re-uploading this for the people that couldn't. I know some of you were planning to go enjoy a beer in this glorious weather, and with the lockdown we've had, I cannot blame you. So I'll be sending out shortly so you can do your tasting later in the day. So yeah, if you want to find out more about us, we're www.rennetandrind.co.uk or Google search Rennet and Rind. We're a friendly bunch, so on Monday morning, because I'm going to take a break now, give us a call on Monday. And yeah, if you ever want to talk about cheese, whether the area is COVID safe, I'd love to have as many of you down here as possible, you know, learning what we're doing here and engaging. We love our community. So yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad, you know, I tried to fill 30 minutes with all the maturing knowledge I have. So hopefully you guys learned something and enjoyed it. I really appreciate you stopping by, and yeah, really appreciate it, guys. And please, Google British Cheese Weekender. There is so many brothers in arms in the cheese industry that are doing phenomenal shows over the next couple of days. You know, get involved, support our British cheese heritage. It's so important that it survives, and we really want it to stick around. And, you know, due to the remarkable work of the Academy of Cheese, Tracy and Patrick, I'm pretty sure we're seeing clearer, bluer skies. So thank you so much for joining me, guys. Take it easy, yeah? Have a good day.